Yo, what's up, Carl? Don't worry about mean old Jason. He'll always find the negative in something. You keep playing all those games, dude. Anyway, that was an awesome session recap of your Warhammer game. I've never run a joust before, but I really liked the way you did it, man. Where if you lost half your wounds, you got knocked off the horse. I like that. That's awesome. And your players showed some really good ingenuity in beating the crap out of the noble. Because anytime, any chance you get to beat a noble, take it. Anyway, man, that's it for me. Peace out.
Yeah, there, Joe. I think my players were also not worried about mean old Jason and what he said. I offered if they wanted to rebuttal, but they're like, why? We've either, one, not played second edition, so we can't compare, and we know this game is hella deadly. That's why we don't get into front-up fights and try to be sneaky and pick the fights that we want to pick and always try to get the advantage. That's sort of the goal in this, and it was really fun to run the joust. I have an idea of how I would run it in the future too, and I really liked that during the joust it was much like a Knight's Tale, where the other players who weren't in the joust got to get into it, and I think they really enjoyed that part of it as well, even though they weren't fighting. And then the player who's playing the elf knight who got beat up during the joust was like, good, I'm glad I don't have to do the melee. But he definitely had fun. And what I did is, I really like his participation and performance in this joust for this noble's son, well, this duke's son, really changes the the tone of the adventure in a way, and really changes this character's life, because now they've done a favor for this noble, and the noble kind of owes him. And this noble star is also rising, because whereas before he was sort of like a cast off in the mind of the Duke, now maybe he's something to the Duke. So I gave actually that player a fate point permanently, an extra fate point permanently, because they really changed their fate in the Warhammer verse in this particular adventure.
Hey, Carl, Jason here. Really enjoyed your latest episode. As far as Warhammer Fantasy and 4th edition, 2nd edition. I played 2nd edition. I haven't played or read 4th edition. I was just kind of going off your comments and what I read on the internet about 4th edition kind of tries to simplify things and clean things up. And somebody on the internet said it was the kiddie edition, which is kind of where I got that from. But, hey, as long as you enjoy playing it, just because a game's a kiddie game doesn't mean you can't play it in a serious way. And it sounds like a great campaign that all your players are having fun in, and you're doing great things in. So, I guess like if you're playing kids with bikes, you're stuck playing kids because it's baked into the rules. But outside of that, I mean, you could take a game like Hero Kids and still run adult themes in it, So, yeah, man, you guys do you.
Jason, I guess you just can't help yourself throwing shade. I mean, definitely isn't a kid's game where you chop off body parts, I don't think. It'd be a strange kid's game if it were. Maybe a kid's horror game. So definitely, I don't think that cleaning up a system, especially with career trajectory, especially with combat, makes it less of a tough, grimdark game. But to each his own. I think you should play. You probably enjoy it. It doesn't have all the fiddly that I think 2nd edition does sometimes. And especially with career progress, you're not, in 2nd edition, you kind of had to look around and jump around with your career, because it just wasn't worth staying in one career. And what they've done is create tiers of different careers. So yes, you can switch careers if you wish, but it's worth it staying in the same career that you're in. So it definitely is a better player-friendly facing, but it's still deadly as hell. We'll see what the characters do. I mean, an NPC almost got decapitated from a joust. So, cool. I will talk to you soon. But, yeah, if you want to experience that game, let me know. I know we have some interest in the Discord, so one of these days maybe we will. now for some recaps. So I've run a couple of D&D style games. Sorry, I ran one D&D style game and played in another. And this weekend so far. And the first game I ran was a DCC fantasy game using the items and works in Echoes from Fomalhaut by the First Hungarian D20 Society. And I really like the vibe that I see in these products. I think I got something on drive-thru that I thought was pretty cool on sale, and I went to their website, the Echoes from Fomalhaut website, and got a couple items. And I probably will get more. I want to collect these fanzines, and I really enjoy it. I will put the information in the show notes. So this DCC Fantasy, I decided to run this one encounter that I saw in there. The characters are being pursued by marauders of the broken wastes across this reddish sandy terrain. They see a mound in the distance, which they've heard is a site of an artifact that their treasure seeking and treasure hunting has looked for. We decided as a group to start these characters at 5th level. So at 5th level, the fighters get a good action dice, a good size action dice, and have 2 actions in a round. Same with spellcasters; they'll have 2 actions in a round with spellcasting. So it's pretty good. The players should be competent, and we see how it goes, right? So they were chased. They decided to keep going towards the mound. When they got to the mound, the marauders backed off for some reason. The dwarf character in the party did take a pot shot at him and took out one of the marauders, and they backed off and decided to make camp. And they were being closely pursued by a group of 8, but I suggested that there were many more out there, maybe a score or so more. So they all decided to be mounted. 2 of them decided to have a lizard mount, much like a boga from Star Wars. If you remember Ben Kenobi's mount in the last of the 3 prequels. And then one of them had a camel. So the dwarven player had a camel-like creature. So they go up to the mound. There's a set of stairs that have been carved into the rock. They go and investigate the first cave, and there's all these clay urns. They agitate something inside, and these large beetles come and attack them. They are giant fire beetles, and the combat went slow, and I thought the characters would be more competent to take on 4 of these beetles, but it took a while. They got pretty badly banged up. But the cool thing about DCC is healing is pretty generous if you're a cleric, and yes, it's risk versus reward, because if you roll poorly, then you can't heal anymore because your god is upset at you. So there is this more intervention or interaction or oversight by the gods in a DCC fantasy type game, which I think works well with the Fomalhaut vibe. The gods are there, they take notice, right? So they dispatched these fire beetles, took some time to heal. They found that these urns were more like offerings. They had the skeletons of animals, foodstuffs, artwork, ceramics, and then there was this mural on the back that was faded with age and showed a scene that was quite a contrast to the red wastes and broken lands that they had been traversing. It was a jungle scene with a ziggurat prominent in it. They continued up this mound, and there was a place where they could have gone further along the one side of the crag, but it wasn't quite as carved, the stairs, so they decided to go up the stairs to this hole in the mound, which is where the wind would blow through and create these ghostly sounds. But nearby they spied a crack in the rock and a set of stairs going down. So they went down into this grotto. In the grotto was a giant scorpion, which they dispatched, I think, thanks to the timely intervention of a paralysis spell by the priest, which worked really well because the 2 fighter characters were caught in the claws and going to be stung to death maybe, but the paralysis worked. In this grotto, were these flagstones that when they walked on them sounded metal. So they used their crowbar to pry up the flagstones, and they found this enameled metal or metal floor with enamel coverings on some of it that formed a pattern. The priest character was a worshiper of the Amontor, the god of puzzles and riddles, so sat and examined this and discovered that these different 3 colors of enamel formed a pattern. So the player walked them and a gate appeared, and they discovered that there were 3 different gates to 3 different locations, and they went through one of them, but on the back side it looked like the pattern had been disrupted. So before the gate closed, they hurried back to the mound, and then I think they rested and were gonna they decided to rest after that. They threw the scorpion through one of the gates. One gate, I'll just say, so one gate led to a ringed set of menhirs or stone structures in a forest covered hills. Another led to maybe an underground structure that seemed to be are not natural, so an unnatural underground structure, like a square room of some sort, but they didn't go through. And the third led to an oasis in the desert somewhere. So we'll see what they do and where they go, and we'll pick it up, I think, in a couple weeks. I feel like DCC was slow and new to a couple players, so it didn't go as fast and dynamic as I wanted to, but I think we'll get the hang of it. And we tried to do like not use VTT. The player, I think one of the players might have had trouble not having the VTT, so I think I'm going to go to a Roll20 visual for it. It helps me a lot too to keep track of things, so I think we're going to switch to Roll20 instead of just using a Zoom or a Discord platform. So, and rolling dice. Although it's fun to roll dice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy roll dice, or I can roll dice in the background while the players roll on the virtual, or they can do either, right? I trust the players that they won't do anything weird. So that's my DCC Fantasy Echoes from Foamholt. It was the Assault on the Red Mound. So we'll continue from there and see what happens. Do they go through the gate? Do they continue to explore the mound? We will see. This morning I played in a game of Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. It is Arlen Walker, live from Pelham's Wasteland Valoria campaign, and it was pretty cool. So our characters are examining this barrow mound. We fought an undead creature, possibly a wight of an ape man before, and there are 3 crypts to examine, or 3 sarcophagi to examine. So we pull the cover off the first, and this wraith comes out, and somehow we dispatch it. We use fire. We get it to where it's at the entrance of the cavern, and then one of the players seeks to use a gold coin to shine sunlight on it, because it seems it has an aversion to sunlight. It can't function. The gold coin doesn't really work, but my character has a mirror in his thieves' kit, so he hands him the mirror, and slowly the thing is turned to ash. We did fire at it. One of the characters did get hit by the creature and backed away out of the cave. But surprisingly, we took care of it. We did a rinse and repeat of the second sarcophagus, and that also had a wraith, and this time Arlen let us just burn it down with a sunlight power. So we got a lot of treasure from these things, which was pretty cool. And then we decided to head back to town. We couldn't move the 3rd sarcophagus, so we went back to get more gear, crowbars, a sledgehammer, and the like. And then, we were carrying so much treasure, we wanted to turn it in. So we found a merchant who would turn our gold and gems and jewelry into trade chits, and did some shopping in town, rested and leveled up. So my character is now 3rd level, will basically be 4th level after the next session if he survives, because he has enough XP to do that, but you only go 1 level per session, even though we've gotten a ton of XP by killing race and taking their treasure. So we return here because we want to examine that third sarcophagus. We return to the barrow, but there are 8 men there waiting and guarding, probably upset that we have trashed their barrow or defiled their barrow. So we haven't spoken to these 8 men, so we just attack them, or they attack us. They get to jump on us actually, and injure one of the players pretty handily. But the player is a berserker, or the character is a berserker, injures one of the player characters pretty badly, but the character is a berserker and goes into a rage, starts cutting things down left and right. We have the 2 missile people, including my character, are able to hide in the jungle and fire upon their archers and take him out, and the melee mops him up pretty readily. So we take care of these 8 men and take their treasure, which didn't amount to much. And then when we go and examine the barrow, we see that they have seen our defilement. They've taken the lids off the sarcophagi, and then it looks like the third sarcophagus actually has moved, and we see a set of stairs going down as we push it off. So I think that's what we're going to do the next time, is go and examine down below and see what lies beneath the barrow. So fun session, pretty quick, good combat and planning with that first wraith. No one died and got turned into a wight or a wraith, which was great, and people leveled up and it was cool. So the next time we continue Hyperborea Valoria by Arlen Walker, it will be going to examine what lies beneath. Recap Act 3. I played in a game run by Kevin Madison of the Dungeon Musing, and that game is a Ravnica D&D 5e game where I play Trovik, who is a Path of the Berserker barbarian minotaur, totally min-maxed for Joe Richter of Hindsightless's benefit. He's a damn good fighter, but not much of the talky intrigue type of person. And this past session, this will be pretty short, because this past session was a lot of talky and intrigue that Trovik kind of listens in the back and probably discovered. Well, he figured he's with the Gruul clan, so the Gruul clan has the Gruul guild has a lot of clans who are more or less at war all the time. So there's definitely some clans that want to go to this doorway artifact, some clans that probably don't, some clans that are warning that it's a bad thing to do because there's another guild, the Boros, who are probably treacherous. Other guilds probably have a say in this, that will be acting treacherously as well. The signature encounter was, we found this encampment that was abandoned. It had some food in it. It was probably, maybe we thought it was a trap, but it led us to some explosives that we decided to keep, and our guides down into this underneath of Ravnica to this door portal that leads to that opens some structure in theory. That the leader of this, some guy named Volko, who is an arrogant fire mage type, well, he was not happy about it, but we kept him. So we traveled on underneath here. We're not at the ruin yet that we're supposed to get to and open. And we left the session. We're crossing the water and something large is attacking us. Probably to get back at our explosives, to get some of us, because we're the badass cool characters. Everyone wants to beat up on or be one of the cool kids, right? So, I got to throw my javelin, so I got to do some action. I hit the creature and did some damage, but probably not a lot because it looks like a big damn Leviathan hybrid weirdy creature coming up from the depths of this underground lake river. So that's Ravnica. We're going to continue in 2 weeks, and maybe once again Trovik will dive into the water and be like Tarzan and stabby, slashy, and kill the thing under the water.
Jack Links.
Hey Carl, it's David, Melissa, and Amy. We're calling in to get our bennies before the game starts, so that's legitimate.
That's my wife Amy commenting that I didn't give them the bennies that were owed to them. Well, usually you get 3 bennies to start in your Savage Worlds game. We play Savage Worlds Deadlands on Sunday night with my Sunday dinner group. And it's my friend David and Melissa and my wife Amy. And, well, I said if you called in, you get a Benny. So Amy was trying to max that possibility, get another Benny by making that sort of pseudo call-in. But, I did. Did I award it? I don't think I did. They definitely needed bennies because it was a pretty tough adventure. So the last time what had happened was they had gotten to this mining community called Last Chance somewhere in the mountains in southeastern Wyoming. They're heading towards Deseret, Wasatch area to deal with the Hellstrom company because they found some artifacts or they found some Hellstrom products that were concerning. So there's a territorial ranger and an agent, and both of their bosses or their higher-ups said, hey, go check this out. This is interesting, or maybe it's not. So they got to this place Last Chance. They were attacked by devil bats on the way. They found out this town has been cursed by a Lakota shaman due to mining, because these Lakota tribesmen were killed while trying to mine and gain some mining rights. But of course the miners, well, everything seems kind of gray, and sometimes it's interesting why players help NPCs or towns like they do. Who knows? So there was definitely a confrontation in the town last time. They resolved it, so they're all like, okay, well, you guys are the heroes and you'll help us with this curse, right? So the characters sort of tacitly agreed. They stay with their stagecoach at night because they really don't want to stay in the saloon. They don't trust these people. And at night, while Hex is on watch, that is the Hex Slinger character. While Hex is on watch, some townsfolk graffiti the stagecoach of theirs with what they later discover is blood. Hex doesn't see it. The subsequent watch, Sam, the agent, sees it, and it's kind of pissed off, wakes up Lucky and Bucky, their NPC driver, stagecoach drivers, to clean it. Doesn't do a great job. So they she goes to the saloon in the morning to get coffee while the characters try to continue to clean this. But before they can do anything more, the devil bats come back, and there are 2 waves of 3 this time, since, as the townsfolk predicted, since they killed the devil bats and didn't give the sacrifice of 3, then more would come to make up for that lack of sacrifice. And they had learned also that the devil bats carry them, the people that they capture, over the mountains and drop them or dump them off somewhere. So, right. So the characters dispatch these creatures pretty easily, I would say. No one got injured and none of them got close. They used ranged fire to take care of them for the most part, and no one was injured. And then they go to the saloon to drink a shot of whiskey before one of the players says, well, I guess that means we got to go up into the mountains. I think that was David, the territorial ranger. Actually, he said, are we going up into the mountains now to take care of the situation?
And we've been playing this for 4 weeks. And I just now realized we're the good guys and we're supposed to be making people happy.
I guess so. Haha, that was Melissa, who plays Hex, coming to a revelation in the game. So they did, in fact, start climbing into the mountains. I ran a modification of the travel rules from the Rifts Savage Worlds book. I think it is in the Legion Legion Guide or something. It's not the main player's manual, but it's a subsequent player's manual. Anyway, so Jake, the Territorial Ranger, took point and was a scout, so they won't get lost. Or sorry, was the guide, so they wouldn't get lost. The next person, the scout, was Hex, who had a good notice, and they made their notice that you could choose what kind of encounter you had, drawing from 2 cards. And then my wife's character, Amy, the agent, made sure that the horses and provisions were okay. So things were pretty smoothly. They were leading the horses up there just in case they needed to. They ran into an encounter during the first sort of phase. I felt it would take like 2 watches. And the first phase, they chose an encounter. So the single devil bat comes flying out from the trees. Jake sees it, spins around and shoots, but doesn't take it out. And it smacks pretty hard into Hex. She takes a wound, but doesn't go down, but subsequently is destroyed, probably by Sam, pretty handily. So it did injure. They took a break, and Sam was able to heal Hex's wound. Hex was not able to soak, if I recall correctly. So, or maybe took more damage and soaked enough so that that character was just shaken and had a wound. But Sam fixed her, and they continued on. In the second watch, where they were traveling up into the mountains, now past the tree line, they decided to do the obstacle instead. They weren't drawing super great. I wasn't drawing super great for the 2 cards for the travel. So the first time I drew spades and clovers, and I drew spades and clovers again. They chose spades for an enemy, and they chose clovers for an obstacle. This time there's a rock slide, so I made it a dramatic task. And they succeeded pretty well. No one got injured. No horses were taken down. No one rolled a critical to earn fatigue. So they eventually Jake, the Territorial Ranger, sees one of these devil bats flying over the ridge. They follow it, and they see this large bat cave. They can smell the stink of the guano from it, and they attempted to be stealthy. Jake and Hex are super stealthy, but alas, Sam kicks over a rock, causes some noise to echo in this bowl between 2 peaks, and this large devil bat flies out, and it is somewhat scaled, which is a little different, and wheels around, and I think they took a shot at it. There are some other devil bats that aren't big that look like this inside the cave that are agitated. The bats start flying out and are agitated. So this one swoops around. I think they took a shot at it. Maybe they shook it. It didn't really do much. And it swooped in and breathed fire on them, which they were all surprised by. The fire didn't do as much as I thought. I rolled poorly on the damage. I didn't get any aces on the damage, so it was like 46 fire. And they were the 2 characters who got hit, Sam and Jake, were only shaken. Meanwhile, Hex is having trouble with her rifle. Those other creatures start pouring out of there. Fortunately, she fixes her gun in the next round, takes a shot after casting a ammo whammy spell that gives her like an explosive bullet, blows up 2 of them. They shoot at the big one again. It swoops in, grabs Sam, and picks Sam up. Does a little bit of damage to Sam. Actually, I think it just shakes Sam when it grabs it. It grabs the agent and lifts it up into the air I think it was 10 inches, being about 20 to 30 yards up. Is that right? 20 yards up. Anyway, a good distance up. And then the next round, and no one can hurt this, no one can damage it yet. The next round, it drops Sam nearly to her death, but Amy makes a critical soak roll so that Amy's character only has 3 wounds instead of over 4. So I think rolled a raise on the soak and mitigated 2 wounds. So it was still alive, just lying there staring up at this devil beast. I think someone injured it. Probably Jake injured it with a shot. Shook it up and gave it a wound. I had to use some soak to mitigate some damage or unshake, something like that. So by then I was out of bennies, but the characters were desperate. I believe Hex was attacked by one of these other devil bats, smaller devil bats that came out of the cave, got ripped up pretty good. But then Sam turns around, looks up at the sky, and opens fire with the Gatling gun. Even with the minuses, it gets 2 shots, both with raises. That's with like a -3. I think there was a minus for... Was there a minus for distance? I can't remember. But Amy's dice raised or aced when they, at the appropriate time. Sometimes I say as usual. But she blew the creature up with shots from her Gatling carbine. Now I think it's a pretty powerful weapon that agents get. So that creature was destroyed, and then subsequently they beat the last 2 surviving small ones. So Sam and Hex are injured, so they start to patch each other up as best they can. While Jake goes in there, he has a stick of dynamite left. We did look up, Guano is hella explosive. There's actually a town in Texas, north of Blanco, called Blowout, that was named after a bat cave that blew up nearby the original town, and they renamed it Blowout. So yes, Guano is hella explosive. He sneaks into the cavern. The bats are everywhere, but he manages to plant his dynamite. He sees in there, interestingly, and Hex had noticed some sort of shimmer before, but didn't go in to investigate. And he sees this portal linking, kind of a gate that they've encountered before to the hunting grounds, but this hunting ground was quite different. There seemed to be no ground, only these floating islands in some sort of non-Euclidean geometric space. Many, many devil bats were flying to and fro from these floating islands. It was very disturbing and disconcerting. Around this shimmering portal were runes, prehistoric runes, that Jake felt were older than the Lakota script that he might have seen here and there, predating the tribes in the area, but possibly triggered by that dying curse of that shaman nearby. But they blew it up. I don't know if they blew up the gate. No one will ever know. They blew up the cave and kind of collapsed everything. So at least the shimmering portal can't be used, or perhaps destroying the cave destroyed those runes and inactivated the portal. I haven't decided, and we'll never know. But it was pretty harrowing. They went back to town, or they kind of healed up, camped one night in the woods, went back to town and gave a tale of their escapades, lowering the fear level in the town, which is a kind of a cool mechanic. And here's what Amy has to say about that. But that's my recap of Deadlands. Guano happens.
Okay, Carl, so it's David, Melissa, and I calling in to say you still didn't kill us, which is good. You tried really hard. You always take our bennies, so you owe us each one next time. Just saying.
I gave you conviction.
I'm very convicted that we need more bennies.